Hi. Hello there, my name is Mackenzie, welcome back to my channel, and thank you so much for being here. Today we are doing a wrap-up. Yes, I know, it is crazy to expect around this time a wrap-up, but I'm doing one. We're gonna go in chronological order. I have no idea, you guys, I have no statistics for you at all. I sat down completely unprepared to film this video. Aside from the fact that I have the books right next to me, I'm unprepared. So I'll just let editing Mackenzie pop up on the screen all the statistics that we're looking for. I'm thinking I'll put up how many books I read, the ratio of physical to audio books, how many pages that was. I think this is the first month all year that I've read manga as well, so we can put up a statistic about that. Could do how many different genres I read. But aside from the statistics, I am ready to talk to you about the books. So let's start in chronological order. I feel like this was a pretty good reading month. Every time I look at the stack of books that I read this month, I'm like, oh wow, that was pretty good. So we actually did better than I thought. There was like 4 5 stars in here. The rest were 4 stars and 1 3 star. Alright, so we're gonna... Hi. Hello. Nice to see you. So we're going to talk about Heartstopper. So I read this as part of my 24 hours of reading vlog, but that's not why I read it. I was just already planning on reading the trilogy. It's not a trilogy. I think there's 4. There's 4 out, and she might be doing more. But I have the first 3 because my Barnes & Noble doesn't have the 4th until December, so I am eagerly awaiting the 4th installment. I think I'm the last person on the Heartstopper fan train, so I don't know if I necessarily have to tell you a summary of this, aside from the fact that there's Charlie, who's gay, and Nick, who at the beginning of this series believes he is straight, and throughout the series discovers that he might not be straight because he's developing feelings for Charlie. It is the best thing that I have ever read. This series and Felix Ever After have truly made me feel like I missed out on a queer friend group in high school because I didn't realize I was queer until after high school. And seeing all of these beautiful friendships of people who are encouraging each other and wanting each other to live their best lives, their honest lives, is so beautiful. And I'm so happy for kids today that they have this. I'm sad that I didn't have this. It's very frustrating that I didn't have this, but I wouldn't want it any other way. I'm glad that this exists. It's just one of those things where when you see such great things and the leaps and bounds that we've made as a queer community to be recognized and to have representation, and then you realize that just a couple of years ago, like I'm not even that old, and my childhood was filled with compulsive heteronormativity and hating everything about myself because of my gender dysphoria. So let's talk about the books. All 5 stars, all amazing. And I know I said that I feel like I'm the last person on the Heartstopper fan train, but I also don't want to spoil it in case you guys don't really know what's going on. I just want you to know that it's graphic novel, it's beautiful in this blue kind of color scheme. It's so sweet and so adorable, and everything is handled so well, and I feel like the storylines within each of the volumes are very definitive, and I really enjoyed that as well. I thought when I was going into it that it was going to be much more like it's just one continuous story. I don't know where one ends and the next one begins, but with these I truly felt like they had a definitive storyline that maybe didn't end at the end of the book because of course it's continuing on, but it did feel like it had a conclusion, wrapped it up, and honestly they're the sweetest things ever. And just writing of teen queer romance is something that I will absolutely never get over. Never get over, okay? Heartstopper, volumes 1 through 3, 5 stars, chef's kiss, don't change a thing. Can't wait for volume 4. The next book I read I picked up from last month. So I think last month's wrap up, I was telling you guys how I read part of this book and put it down. I'm not sure why I put it down, but I think I wasn't going to pick it up. And I ended up picking it up because I still had the audiobook for it, and I was like, well, why not just pick it up? Like, let's do that. So I picked it up and I enjoyed it, and I didn't even have to confirm the rating for this to know that it was a 3-star, because I have no idea what it was about. Oh, okay, I remember now. But that's why it's a 3-star. The premise is great. It's about Rin, who works at her family's graveyard with her 2 sisters. People aren't really burying the dead anymore. They're burning them because the dead are rising. And the risen dead are called bone houses. And it's all about Rin and Ellis, who comes to Colburn, where they live, and they together try and figure out why the bone houses are leaving the forest and attacking people. It was a very interesting read, and like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed it while I was reading it, but it's one of those things where there wasn't enough world building for me to absolutely agree that this place was 100% real, and there wasn't enough characterization to where I felt like I could carry these characters on and remember them completely. We have strong female protagonist, and we have sweet cinnamon roll male protagonist, and we have some magical things that happen. And that's really enough to get a 3-star out of me. I feel like the conclusion was kind of the best part of this. It really wrapped a lot of things together, and it really felt like a well thought out conclusion as opposed to something that was just slapped on there, which I fully expected a slapped on conclusion, and it didn't give it to me. It was a well thought out conclusion that matched the theme of the story, and I really enjoyed it. It's not as memorable as it could be, and I feel like a lot of that came from the lack of world building and characterization, but it was still enjoyable. Next, I read All Systems Red by Martha Wells. So I picked this up, and even though it's only a short novella, I still needed the audiobook, mainly because a lot of the time science fiction can be difficult for me to just jump into. I need to feel more engaged. I need to make sure my mind isn't wandering, and you know what? I don't even want to say that that's science fiction. It's fault. I think my mind is at a current place of wandering lately, and it's hard for me to sit and relax with a book. So I needed the audiobook for this. Goodbye. Regardless, I completely enjoyed it. I thought it was a really interesting introduction to Murderbot. Like with Heartstopper, I feel like I'm the last person on the Murderbot fan train, but I'm so glad that I jumped on. It's very interesting, and this was such a good introduction. I feel like it jumped in at a perfect time, and it leads into truly anything. I feel like the story could go anywhere from here, and it was so engaging. I gave this a 4-star. The only thing that really held it back was that I wanted a lot more, and I wanted a lot more from Murderbot's perspective. I feel like a lot of it was following his perspective, but then a few times we got caught up with the humans, and like, I just wanted to be with Murderbot. I wanted them to talk about themselves. I wanted to know more about them. I wanted to see them in different scenarios. And every time the humans came back up, I was like, okay, the humans are here, but like, and the ending was such an interesting ending. It was such a bittersweet ending that just really made me want more. And I'm really, really glad that I got to start it. It was so great. Next, I read Homebody by Rupi Kaur. This is a poetry collection. This is her newest poetry collection. I have read all of her other collections. I did enjoy it. There was a lot of poems in here that weren't necessarily talking about experiences that I've had or relating to me, but they were talking about experiences in a way for me to understand. She was writing these poems for someone else to understand hardships, and I felt like that was almost a gift, really. A lot of the times when I read poetry, I'm looking for it to connect to me, make me emotional, maybe make me cry, maybe even put words to things that I haven't put words to yet. But this was more of an experience, and sharing that experience with someone else who isn't necessarily aware that certain experiences even may happen. But it was really nice and really sweet. It talked a lot about finding strength in other women and relationships. that aren't necessarily romantic relationships. And that was something that I really enjoyed, because that's not something that I have really put a lot of importance on, mainly because of my background of moving around consistently and not being able to put down roots. So I don't really have a strong network of friends, and all of the relationships that I've built have only been romantic in nature. So it was really interesting to read a book of poetry relating to someone else. Well, I truly didn't have a basis within my own memory for those experiences, but it was really enjoyable. Really enjoyed it. I don't rate poetry. Next, I read Dune Messiah by Frank Herbert. So me and my husband are continuing to buddy read the Dune books together. He was already finished with Dune Messiah by the time I picked mine up. I think we still have plans to do a review for this, but I will give you kind of a brief overview. I gave it a 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. This is the second book in the Dune series, and it follows the main characters of the Dune book 10 years after the ending or conclusion of the first Dune book. It's really a great sequel, because if you felt like Paul, the main character of Dune in the first book, had it too easy and really didn't have to suffer too many consequences, this is the book of consequences. This is the book that shows all of the long-term problems that have been building up, that came to a head in Dune, and now are just releasing all of these problems. It feels truly like when a star dies. So much sad and bad and good writing. Like, I'm consistently astounded by Frank Herbert's writing, especially considering how long ago these were written. These are great. And this is a wonderful sequel. And honestly, I'm excited to see where it goes. Before I read Dune, if you were to tell me that what is to happen, I don't know if I would have enjoyed it as much as truly following the ride and seeing all of these characters go through such heartache and heartbreak and trauma. So much trauma! But it was so good. I really enjoyed it. And I think that's all I'm going to say about it, because if we do a Dune review for it, I want you guys to tune in. What? Okay, I'll let you out. It was about this point in the month that all of my audiobooks started coming in from the library, so I picked up Miss Meteor by Taylor K. Mejia and Anna Marie McLemore. I'm not sure how to say that last name. So I read this on audiobook. I gave it a 4 star. I thought it was super cute. Honestly, you guys, okay, so after I read Felix Ever After, I went through like every YA contemporary romance list that I could find from the last 2 years and put every book that even vaguely sounded interesting or slightly queer on it. And I added all of those audiobooks to my library, and I had just been waiting for them to come in. So I wasn't necessarily as excited for this book to come in as other books, but after reading it, it was so good. It was so good. So looking at the cover, to me, I thought this was going to be a female-female romance. Listening to the book for the first 30% of it, I thought this was going to be a female-female romance. And I'm not sure. And I think what I really had to confront about myself while reading this is that I don't have close female friends, and I never have. And that is because when I started having closer female friends as a child, my unacknowledged bisexuality pushed all of those females away, because that's what I do when I start getting close to someone and start having romantic feelings for them. I push them away because it makes me nervous, especially girls, especially when I thought I didn't like girls. So I had put myself in this position to not know what strong female friendship looks like, or what it looks like when you fall out with a friend and then come back together with that friend. Like, there was a lot of emotions that were talked about that I had no idea that people felt platonically. That's a whole check on myself, right? Like, that's something that I had to address myself. I appreciate this book for having me address the fact that I don't know what it's like to have female friends. and acknowledging, honestly, these YA contemporary romances are better than therapy. They are truly helping the queer inner child of myself get through everything that happened, acknowledge everything that happened, and move on. Like, so cute. So this is not a female-female romance. The two females each individually have a male counterpart romance. One of the males is trans, and the other female is pansexual. So it is queer, but it is not female-female romance in the sense that I thought I was getting. Regardless to say, I completely enjoyed it. I completely enjoyed it. Even while I was confused and thought that it was still a female-female romance, and even when I realized that it was no longer a female-female romance, I was loving this book. It's so cute. It's so sweet. So basically it's about these two girls. They were friends before, and then they had a big falling out, and it's about them kind of finding their friendship again more than it's about them finding romance with their respective guys. It's really sweet. It involves one of them getting into a beauty pageant as a contestant, and the other one is helping her kind of win the pageant because she's not the stereotypical winner. There's also a bit of magical realism in here that, like, nobody seems to be talking about, but it was literally the cherry on top, the icing around the cake, the ice cream on the apple pie. It was, like, the best part, and like, it wasn't explained. Like, the whole time I thought it was like maybe a metaphor. No, I don't think it's a metaphor. I think it's just real magical realism, and it was there just tossed in for you to be like, yep, here it is. And it just, of the two things that I've taken away from this story, the one being recognizing that I don't understand relationships, friendships, and that I need to give more weight to platonic relationships, at least for other people, and let them have that room. But also, that magical realism and just adding it into, sprinkling it into this story was so astounding. It was so good. If it perhaps leaned more into that magical realism aspect and maybe made it a little bit grander, it would have been pushing 5-star boundary, but already is a high 4-star. Next, I read Graceling by Kristen Cashore. So I read this for a reading vlog where I read this book and the second book. These were both rereads as I've read them both in middle school, high school. So I won't go too in depth into all of my thoughts in this because I do have that reading vlog if you want to see more. But I really enjoyed this. This was a 4-star for sure. It really held up. I felt like even though I remembered most things that were happening, there was still a lot of little details that I really enjoyed, and watching these characters become vulnerable with each other was something that was truly magical, and truly a magical book, a magical story, a magical realm, and I feel like it's a really good place to start if you're trying to move into more of like a high fantasy where things get a little bit more complicated, a little bit more political. I think this is a really good place to start if you're looking for a jumping off point. Really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed this, and it just intensifies the need to read the final two to figure out how all of it comes together. Next, I finished up 2 other YA romances on audiobook. I read I Think I Love You by Ariane Desambre. I was excited to get this one from the library because it is a 2021 release that I was already had on my radar. And this one was a female-female romance, which was also very exciting. This book was about 2 girls who are from the same friend group. One of them who was in Paris the previous school year and is now returned, who feels a little estranged from the friend group and is trying to just get back in the groove of things. The other friend is super into filmmaking and is trying to get the group into doing a project for a filmmaking festival in hopes of getting enough money to go possibly to film school, and they don't like each other. The one who likes film doesn't like the other girl, mainly because the one who likes film is bi, and the one who went to Paris is a lesbian. And the one who went to Paris has always been out, but the one who is bi is not out to her family. And ever since she came out to her friend group, she feels like everyone's kind of pushed them together because they're the only out girls in their school. She doesn't like being pushed into it. And she also resents the other girl for having an open communicative relationship with her parents about her sexual identity. I don't think the girl who went to Paris really has an issue with the other girl, aside from the fact that the other girl and her just bicker, and they kind of flirt, you know? And so their friends kind of come up with a plan to make them think that the other is in love with them. And that is so great. I really enjoyed it. This friend group was super interesting. I really felt like each of them had their own individual characteristics. Like, they really felt truly as individuals, aside from, this is a voice that I put up for to make the book feel more fleshed out. It truly felt natural. I thought it was really cute and sweet, and you know, that's really all it takes for me. It was something that was so engaging, really good, really sweet. Didn't want to stop. I just enjoy them. And all of them have a little bit of a different wrapper, and that's it. That's really all that makes them different. But all it really is these kids figuring out love, and I really enjoyed this because both of the girls felt like they were pining after each other and confused, and so much like cute little flirting, and like, because they both think that each other likes them, so they're trying to like be nice to each other, and then they end up like falling for each other, and like so cute, so good. And like, there wasn't even really a third act breakup, more so as a third act problem. Didn't even really have to do with them as a relationship, but more as them as a friend group, and had to do with their entire friend group and a lie that was being spread about. And I enjoyed that because from the perspective of the book and what was happening, it really felt like the natural progression of things. The third act conflict is something that I'm always going to reference when reviewing any romance book, mainly because it's something that is going to make or break the book for me. And I feel like a lot of the time, like, they're getting it right and hitting it right out of the park every time. Amazing. I think I Love You 4 stars. I don't know if I said that. Then, on audiobook, I also read Perfect on Paper by Sophie Gonzalez. I finished this in a single day. This was also a 2021 release that I had on my radar from a previous month. And when I got it, I was very excited, and I thought I had an idea of where it was going. But it kept throwing me for these, like, twists and turns, and I enjoyed everything about it. I enjoyed the conversation on being a bisexual woman, on being bisexual, and how if you're in a straight presenting relationship, you feel like you are no longer queer enough or valid enough to be in queer spaces. And I feel like that is something, as someone who is bisexual, so important to be talking about. And it is so important to bring up and to make sure that not only people who aren't in our community acknowledge and are aware of, but even people who are in our community acknowledge and are made aware that we are queer enough, even if we are in a straight presenting relationship. Nothing changes about our sexual identity, regardless of the relationship that we're in. And that was a huge, huge conversation in this, and I adamantly enjoyed it, adamantly thought that this was so important to be having. This book, more than giving me happiness with all of the cute things that happen in this romance, it gave a stage for a conversation to happen in a respectful environment where it is a teaching moment, and it is something that lasts and carries and is important for people to read. If you read any queer romance, read this one for me, because it is so important and so good and so lovable. And I felt like, I don't even know if there was even a third act conflict. Rather, there was a lot of conflict that was happening in this book. A lot about understanding your own sexual identity and understanding boundaries between friends and understanding your own emotional intelligence. And then not to mention the fact that this main girl gives relationship advice via anonymous locker emails and notes. Like, this was a great book. And it was layered and beautiful and gorgeous and borders on the 5-star line so much. So much. But I think a lot of that more so comes from the fact that the conversation about bisexuality is so important to be having rather than the aspects of the story. I do feel like the story is 4-star, but that conversation on bisexuality is a 5-star conversation, and it really adds to the book as opposed to just being like a stopping off point or like, let's pause everything in the story to make sure we have this conversation with the reader. No, it was natural and organic and important in the story as it was important to getting that point across to the reader. So good. So good. So after finishing those 2 audiobooks, I finally picked up Fire by Kristen Cashore and finished off that Graceling vlog part 1. This is a reread for this book as it was for Graceling. I enjoyed this, and I understood more of it as I have become an adult, and also as I have read more fantasy and toxic relationships, honestly. The acknowledgement of strange relationships between people, the acknowledgement that people are gray. They have the capability of great good and great evil, and you truly will never know what someone is capable of. It was so good and so interesting, intriguing, and I'm so glad that I reread it. It was utterly worth it. And I said it in my previous in my reading vlog for this, but this book, its placement in the series confuses me, and it only makes me want to continue the series more to make it all make sense. Make it make sense. From that point, I wanted to read more audiobooks, but I picked up Written in the Stars only to find out that it is not a YA book, but an adult book, and that's not an issue for me to read an adult romance. However, it is an issue for me to listen to it because I get embarrassed when someone's telling me steamy scenes. So I realized it was getting steamy and got the physical book and read everything on audio except for the steamy scenes. And I freaking love this book, you guys. Like, this book is so good. This is another one that is such a high 4-star, it borders on a 5-star. And it's a female-female romance between a bisexual woman and a lesbian woman, and it's so sweet and adorable. I love the trope of the grumpy character and the sunshine character getting together, and that's really what this is, not to mention the fact that the grumpy character doesn't want to be in love because they've been hurt before, and the sunshine character believes in true love and soulmates, and you're never going to tell me that that's not the best trope ever. You're just not. It's the best. The best. So good, so amazing, so lovely. I can see myself rereading this all the time. I'm probably gonna reread it for the holidays because this takes place from like Thanksgiving all the way up to Christmas Day is when it ends. And I read it in summer, and that's okay, but I never truly got what people meant, like, ooh, read it in this time period, like during this season, and it'll feel like even better. And I get it now. I feel like if I were to read this during the cold months with like some, so good. Last book that I read was a manga, When a Magician's Pupil Smiles by Chisaki Kanai, I think is how you pronounce it. I'm sorry if it's not. This is a 5-star read for me. It is the omnibus of the entire collection. You guys, the pacing of this was so strange. The ending was so weird. This looks like it is such a sweet cinnamon roll kind of story. It's not. It's very brutal. It's like, it's a little like Tokyo Ghoul, but also Ouran High School Host Club. Like just a little bit, you know? And it's great. I enjoyed all of this. It was just something that I was not expecting at all. Yeah, I really don't understand the end. Like, I don't know if we're to, like, how we're supposed to take the ending. And if you know how we're supposed to take the ending, please tell me in the comments. Just label it as, like, spoilers and then, like, enter, and then write down what you're going to say so it doesn't spoil it for anyone else. But honestly, I have no idea how this ends, and I hope it ends in the way that I want it to end, in the cute way, but I full well know that this has the possibility of not ending that way. But it was so good, you guys. I really don't know how to talk about it. This is about this kid, and he's a magician's pupil, and he doesn't feel emotions. And the magician that he's a pupil under ends up taking on a second apprentice. And that's really all I want to tell you. Because I don't want to say anything else, because I want to see. Honestly, if someone picks this up, please pick it up. And then after like 20 pages, or after even the first volume, what did you think? Like, just tell me. Come back to this page. Come back to this video. Comment down below. What did you think? I can't get over what happened in this book. It was so strange to me. I loved every second of it. It was the best. Absolutely the best. I'm also so glad that I have this in an omnibus, because it makes it easy to just, like, pick it up and, like, find the places where I want to look at. And if I ever want to come back to these small little stories, I can. Like, honestly, I wish there was more. I wish there was more. I could take like another 4 omnibuses of this. I don't want to hold up all those books because it's a lot of books. It'll hurt my little hands. My arms aren't that big, you guys. I need to start working out again. That was quite a long wrap up. I have no idea how many books I read. I have no idea how many pages I read. I also have no idea the genres, ratio from physical to audiobook, or any of those fun statistics, but editing Mackenzie does, and she put them up on the screen for you. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye! Oh wait, what did you read this month? What was your favorite and what was your least favorite? And tell me about it in the comments. I'll see you there. Bye.